Do you think death is the worst thing that can happen to you? Think again. In the dark annals of English history, there existed a punishment designed not just to kill, but to inflict 3 separate deaths upon a single human body. This was the ultimate penalty, reserved for the crime of high treason, the act of betraying the monarch. It was a spectacle of cruelty so extreme that it was legally deemed too indecent for women, who were mercy killed by burning at the stake. But for men, the nightmare was a meticulously choreographed symphony of suffering known as being hanged, drawn, and quartered. This method was not merely an execution, but a systematic dismantling of the human form intended to extract the maximum amount of suffering possible before the final release of death. The law stated that the traitor was less than human, a virus in the kingdom that had to be surgically and violently removed. The objective was to create a theater of pain that would terrify the public into absolute submission. It wasn't enough to simply end a life. The executioner had to dismantle the person, physically and spiritually, while a jeering crowd watched every slice and tear. This wasn't just justice, it was an art form of agony. By transforming the victim into a groaning, mutilated spectacle, the crown ensured that any observer would think twice before uttering a single word against the throne. But before the knife could even touch the skin, the torture began with a journey. You wouldn't be walking to your death with dignity. You would be dragged there like a sack of garbage, and your nightmare is only just beginning. The first phase was the drawing. Imagine being tied to the tail of a horse or strapped to a rough wooden hurdle. Your journey starts at the prison, perhaps Newgate, and you have to travel 3 long miles to the place of execution. This isn't a smooth ride. As the horses gallop, your body bounces over cobblestones, through mud, and across sharp rocks. Your clothes rip away, your skin shreds, and your bones fracture from the blunt force trauma of hitting the ground repeatedly. Deep gashes would open up on your back and legs, exposing muscle and bone to the filth of the medieval streets long before you reached your destination. To make matters worse, you are the guest of honor at a parade of hatred. Thousands of people line the streets, not to wave goodbye but to scream abuse. They throw rotten vegetables, animal excrement, and stones at your battered body. By the time you arrive at the gallows, you are already half dead, bleeding, bruised, and covered in filth. The physical agony is unbearable, but the psychological terror of the mob is suffocating. Some accounts even describe spectators rushing forward to kick or beat the helpless prisoner, adding blunt force trauma to the lacerations caused by the cobblestones. Finally, the horses stop. You look up through swollen eyes to see the gallows waiting for you. You might think this is the end, that peace is coming, but you are dead wrong. The rope is not there to kill you. It is there to wake you up for the real horror. Next comes the hanging. But forget what you know about the quick snap of the neck. This executioner is a professional, and his job is to keep you alive. The noose is placed around your neck, and you are hoisted into the air. The rope constricts your windpipe, cutting off oxygen but leaving the spinal cord intact. Panic sets in instantly. Your eyes bulge from their sockets, your legs thrash wildly in the air searching for purchase, and the pressure in your head feels like it will explode. Your vision blurs into a red haze as the blood vessels in your eyes burst, and your lungs burn with a desperate, silent scream for air that refuses to come. This is a game of brinkmanship with death. As you struggle, your body betrays you. The loss of muscle control leads to public defecation, adding ultimate humiliation to the pain. You dangle there, your heart hammering in your ears like a war drum, drifting toward the black void of unconsciousness. You pray for death to take you. Teetering on the edge of oblivion, you are trapped in a terrifying limbo where you are fully aware of your body failing you, yet unable to do anything to stop the humiliation. But just as the darkness is about to win, the rope is cut. You crash to the ground, gasping for air, confused and terrified. You are alive. But as you look up at the executioner sharpening his long knife, you realize that being saved from the noose was the cruelest act of all. You are groggy, your throat is on fire, but you are awake. Now begins the quartering, or the butchery. The executioner rips open your shirt and takes his blade to your abdomen. With a surgical slice, he opens you up from the groin to the chest. The smell of blood hits the air immediately. He reaches inside your warm body and begins to pull out your intestines, coil by coil. This wasn't a quick slash, it was a deliberate, slow excavation of your abdominal cavity, performed while you were paralyzed by shock, but arguably still able to feel the intrusion. The law required that your members be cut off and your bowels burned before your eyes. Imagine the sheer psychological horror of smelling cooking meat and realizing it is your own entrails sizzling on a brazier right next to your face. The pain is beyond human comprehension, a blinding white noise that drowns out the cheering crowd. Finally, to ensure the traitor is truly dead, the executioner reaches in to tear out your beating heart, holding it aloft and screaming, "Behold the heart of a traitor!" The sheer barbarity of holding up a vital organ, while the victim might still be gasping their last breath, served as the ultimate testament to the monarch's absolute power over life and death. Only then does the darkness finally take you. But even in death, you are not done. Your head is hacked off and your body is chopped into 4 pieces. These pieces are about to go on a tour of the kingdom, a gruesome warning sent to the 4 corners of the land. This punishment wasn't just a scary story, it happened to real people. One of the earliest precursors was William de Morisco in the 13th century. William was a noble turned pirate who operated from the rocky fortress of Lundy Island. He made the fatal mistake of sending an assassin to kill King Henry III. When the assassin failed, the king's wrath was apocalyptic. The king was so enraged by this personal betrayal that he demanded a punishment that would transcend the standard penalties for piracy or murder. In 1242, William was captured and dragged to London. His execution was a prototype of the horror to come. He was dragged by a horse until his skin was flayed, then hanged, and finally his body was quartered. His rotting limbs were sent to the principal cities of England as a message to any other pirates who thought they could touch the king. Though the codified law came later, Morisco's gruesome end set the dark precedent that would terrify English subjects for centuries to come. William was a criminal, so perhaps you have no sympathy, but the man who codified this punishment into a political weapon was no pirate. He was royalty. The first man to suffer the full official sentence was the last Prince of Wales. Dafydd ap Gruffudd was a man who played a dangerous game of thrones. Once an ally of King Edward I, he sparked a massive rebellion in 1282, attacking English castles during Easter week. When Edward finally captured him, he decided that a simple death was not enough. He wanted to make an example that would break the Welsh spirit forever. Edward needed to prove that even noble blood offered no protection against the king's justice, turning Dafydd's execution into a watershed moment in legal history. Dafydd became the first person of high status to be hanged, drawn, and quartered for high treason. The symbolism was brutal. He was dragged for killing knights, hanged for murder, and his bowels were burned for the sacrilege of fighting during Easter. Finally, his body was chopped up for plotting the king's death. His right arm went to York, his left arm to Bristol, and his head, bound in iron, rotted on a spike at the Tower of London. By scattering his remains across the kingdom, the king ensured that the stench of Dafydd's failure would linger in the nostrils of his subjects far and wide. Edward had turned execution into a political broadcast, but sometimes the line between a traitor and a hero is thin. Our final story is about a man who tried to save his people and paid for it with his intestines. Andrew Harclay was a capable commander who defended northern England against the Scots. But after seeing his king, Edward II, fail miserably in war, Harclay realized his people were being slaughtered for nothing. In 1323, he made a decision of conscience. He secretly signed a peace treaty with Robert the Bruce to stop the bloodshed. He believed he was saving his people from a feudal war that had already cost too many lives, acting out of pragmatism rather than malice. He acted for the good of the realm, but the king saw only betrayal. Harclay was arrested and denied a trial. Before the knife touched him, he was stripped of his knighthood in a humiliating ritual. His spurs were cleaved from his heels and his sword broken over his head. He maintained his dignity to the end, insisting he only wanted peace. It didn't save him. He was butchered, and his head was sent to London Bridge. It took 5 years for his sister to get permission to scrape his remains together for a Christian burial. His fate serves as a chilling example that in the eyes of a paranoid monarch, independent thought, even when well-intentioned, was indistinguishable from the foulest treachery. Harclay's story is a tragedy of good intentions met with medieval brutality. It reminds us that in the eyes of the law, the definition of traitor can be terrifyingly flexible. The practice of hanging, drawing, and quartering remained on the books in England for centuries. It was a weapon of psychological warfare designed to extend the moment of death into an eternity of pain. It turned the human body into a canvas upon which the king wrote his power. It wasn't until 1870 that this barbarity was finally wiped from English law, replaced by more civilized methods of execution. For hundreds of years, the threat of this gruesome spectacle loomed over the populace, proving that the state was willing to become a monster to destroy its enemies. Today, we look back at these torture devices and gruesome rituals with a mix of horror and relief. We are lucky to live in an age where a dissenting opinion doesn't result in your heart being cooked in front of your face. But these stories serve as a grim reminder of the darkness that lies within the history of justice. It forces us to confront the uncomfortable truth that human ingenuity has often been most effectively applied to the mechanics of causing pain. Thank you for joining me on this gruesome journey into the past. If you are grateful that your internal organs are staying on the inside today, hit that like button. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell so you don't miss our next dive into the madness of history.